Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mohan Natarajan here. Welcome to SPJIMR Center for Financial Studies webinar on Nifty, the path ahead. Just wanted to briefly give you all a sense of what we do in the Center for Financial Studies. The Center for Financial Studies is a center of excellence which has been set up in SPJIMR. It's a center of excellence in finance. And the objective is to be the thought leader and knowledge partner to industry in the area of finance. We also aim to be an authoritative source of research, policy advice, and education for current and emerging areas. This is by providing a platform for collaboration between industry experts, academic experts, and policy-making people, and by partnering with industry to undertake practice-oriented research. Our areas of focus are accounting, governance and risk, fintech, financial inclusion, and policy and regulations. If any of you all are interested in communicating with us or getting engaged in our activities, please feel free to write to us on cfs@spjimr.org, the email ID given on the bottom right-hand corner. Okay. Or you can also register at the web address given there if you would like to receive news from us. Now, I just want to introduce my fellow panelists over here. Okay. First, let me introduce Rita Pani, who is my fellow moderator, co-moderator for this entire session. And I would like to also introduce Mr. Umesh Kumar Mehta. He is the head of research at Samco Securities. I have known him now for some time. He's a very deep analyst of the capital markets, okay, has some very sound views on the markets on either side. I mean, so he's not necessarily biased towards a bullish or a bearish view, but he has a very balanced view on the markets in terms of where the markets are headed towards, what they should be doing or what will happen to them and so on. Okay. So without much ado, I would like to, hand over the session to Umesh. Umesh should be making a presentation for maybe about 45 to 50 minutes. You can all ask questions here on the webinar chat window. Okay. Please address your questions to all panelists and attendees, so that even the other attendees know what questions you are asking. That's number one. Okay. Questions may please be restricted to, either the market or to specific sectors. Okay. Please don't ask questions regarding specific stocks because, Umesh may not be in a position to comment on specific stocks owing to his own compliance and other restrictions. Okay. So please restrict it to either the market, that is Nifty, or to sectors. I mean, you're welcome to ask questions about, financial sector or, steel sector or whatever you want. Okay. Umesh will do his best to answer all your queries there. So let me hand it over to Umesh now. Umesh, welcome to this webinar hosted by SPJIMR Center for Financial Studies. I hope we are able to sort of have a really fruitful session in terms of your presentation and in terms of the questions asked by the audience here. Thank you, and over to Umesh.
Thank you, Mohan Natarajan. Thank you, Rita Pani. Thanks for this opportunity so that I can present a case. So let me share my presentation and then okay. Okay. So what we are going to do, so currently wherever you listen, people will have view that other markets will go up or they will say don't invest, markets are heading lower, but no one is highlighting what are the facts or what are the data points that they are basing their judgment upon. So what I'm going to share today is few unbiased facts, what bull camp is thinking about. So why they think that market should go higher and this is a buying opportunity. This is a once in a lifetime buying opportunity wherein markets have corrected so fast. And there is another camp, a bear camp. Why they think that markets are heading lower and worst is yet to come. So what are those data points the bulls and the bears are thinking about? So I think this is all about war. And when you are in a war, and stock market is one of the biggest war, you need to think what others are thinking. So it's like a game of a chess. It's important how you strategize, but it is also far more important to understand what your counterpart is thinking, because how he thinks is important, because that is where the market is. And then you can strategize, and based on that, you can have a winning move. So I think the same principle that is played in chess, or for that matter, even in the highest court of law, parties from both sides will give their views, and then it is up to the judge to decide the case. So currently, what I am going to do is I am going to present an unbiased view for first the bear market case, and second a bull market case with facts. And then I will also conclude my understanding where the markets are headed. But more than that, you will be empowered in this road ahead, where markets are headed, because there are certain important milestones that we will highlight. And basis that you will yourself be able to decide that how markets are going, how the roadmap will be. So first, let us talk about a bear case. So here I'm going to present that why Nifty will head back to 7,500, and I will put all my weight, I will put all my conviction that markets are headed for at a base minimum bear case of 7,500. So let's begin the bear camp. So before we begin, let us dispel certain misconceptions that majority of people out there on the street have. They think that if number of deaths are more because of this pandemic, the stock market will not perform well, consumption will reduce, and etc. etc. So this data, so there is one disclaimer. So some of the data that I have used is 2 to 3 weeks old, and maybe because we are near, you will be able to remember what's happened in previous 2-3 weeks. To that extent, I think that will not be a big dampener to analyze this data. So this is here USA is the maximum death, as you can see. Second is Italy, Spain, and the last that you can see down is Germany. So Germany has bare minimum casualties. Also, number of cases were higher, but the death rate in Germany was far lower. So now, if this is the case, then obviously German stock market index needs to be far higher, and maybe US and other countries where the death rate or the casualties are far higher, stock market needs to be lower. So that is absolutely not the case. So if you can see this global comparison on a like-to-like basis, the black line on the extreme right is S&P 500. So this index is really one of the best performing index after the fall, and then you can see Germany, FTSE, UK, you see down there India, Nifty, Italy, Spain. So there is absolute no correlation between either the number of coronavirus cases or the number of death. Stock markets globally are now aligned, and there is an orchestrated move around the world. And so therefore, what is more important is not only analyzing what India is doing, but also it's very important what other countries are doing, and particularly US market, because USA is around 35% of total global market cap. And whichever way USA moves, I think we all are going to follow. So we have no stimulus. Our RBI has done bare minimum. Still, our markets are our markets has witnessed rally in the month of April. So that is mirroring what US market and other developed countries have behaved. So I think that, so let's fundamentally be clear that analyzing India is not the only way to understand where stock markets are headed. Understanding foreign markets is also very important in this global pandemic. So now let's understand two-dimensional historical bear markets. So this is around 100 years of bear market that we have seen in, so this is the data of past 100 years. How bear markets have behaved in the past on a two-dimensional time frame in US. So on bottom, if you can see, that's the number of days the bear markets have lasted. And on the left-hand side that you can see, the percentage loss or the percentages decline that bear markets have witnessed. If you see the red line is the current fall, and currently Dow had fallen by around 35% till the last, till 28th or 29th of March. This fall is one of the highest in terms of percentage vis-a-vis number of days. So nowhere in the past we have seen such massive fall. The speed of the fall is maximum. So this is comparable only 100 years ago bear market, which was in around 1929 to 1933. So currently this fall is 35%, and this is around 50% of move that we have seen in other bear markets over a past century. What I mean by that is a good number of bear markets have corrected by 35%, and then they have started moving higher. So as a percentage, 35% is good move for bulls to start buying. In terms of price correction is very, very attractive. So now let's come back to a blue line that you can see, a dark blue line. That was a financial market 2008-2009 crash, financial crash caused by Lehman Brothers. If you can see that, so that fall was slow, but eventually it corrected by 55% over a 350 trading day period. So now currently that was a financial crisis, but still businesses were on, people were having jobs, ground level situation was still okay, economy was moving, and then we had a 55% correction. Currently, entire world is in a lockdown. Nothing is moving on the ground. This is a health hazard. Financial hazard is likely to come once all these things, once we are, health hazard is taken care of. So this fall has got every likelihood that this will exceed, or at best minimum, need to fall around 50-55%, because that is how bear markets have behaved. And this is a recent history. If you see 1929 and 1933 bear market, the fall was massive, 65%. And if you see the first leg of fall if you see the purple line on the extreme right, the purple line that you can see is a 1929-1933 great bear market crash. The first leg of that fall was as good as the current fall, but then you had a decent bounce back or a retracement, and then you had a slow and steady fall, which corrected by 65%, and that was called a Great Depression. So if that is so, around 100 years ago, the Fed did not know how to respond, and governments at that time were new. They did not know how to tackle this. So we had this massive fall that lasted for 3 years, and the price corrected by 67 to 70%. So currently, there is the anatomy of this bear market is similar to that what we have seen in 1929 to 1933 great stock market crash. But as far as percentage term, we think that there is every likelihood that this is more of a financial crisis. This is more of a health crisis. All crises have come together, and therefore a base case, at least a 55% market correction needs to fulfill that the potential of bear markets that we have seen in the past 100 years. So now I'll take you to the tabular format of bear markets. So if you see the first column, so all those years that were in the bear markets that we witnessed, 1929, 1937, 1946. So this table shows recovery to pre-market crash peak typically takes twice as long as time from peak to trough. What that means is there is one leg, the fall, correct? So how much time market uses to fall? So that you can see probably on the third column. So 1929 took 32 months for the markets to come down. 1937 took 12 months. 1946. So similarly, if you come down, if you see the median, that is 17 months. So on an average, from a statistical point of view, we can say that bear markets took around 17 months to truly unfold themselves. And then if you come to fourth column and you come to the median, it takes around 24 months to recover. So, so what we mean by that is, assuming that a bear market is over, we will still have 24 months from now onwards on an average to reach to 12,400, 12,500 levels back to the peak. So I again repeat, column number 3, 17 months is the medium time that markets take to fall. Currently, we are hardly 2 months and still we have 14 months before us for our markets on a median, on a statistical terms, for a markets to register an actual bottom and then start moving. So the purpose is to understand how in the past bear markets have behaved. There is because greed and fear have always been there in the market, not only in past 100 years, but thousands of years. So what, as a statistical evidence, we need to understand when things turn bad, when there is fear on the street, how much time it takes for the bears to really unfold themselves and how much time it takes for the bulls to come back. So, so now let us understand why markets can really fall. What is the fundamental trigger for the markets to really fall harder? So this piece is a very important information on the debt level. So elevated debt levels make social distancing more costly. What we mean by that, first let us understand the debt levels. So private non-financial sector credit as a percentage of GDP. So Canada is 102% of GDP. So this is the household sector debt. So can you imagine the extent of debt people have in terms of their car EMIs, their home loan EMIs, their office EMIs and vacation EMIs. So the extent of debt is 100% of GDP, and this is for household sector. And if you see on the right hand side, that is corporate sector. That is 115. So there is huge amount of debt at the corporate balance sheet. So this is a problem. If you see down below, France 61% and corporate sector 155%. If you see USA between, 75% of the household sector is debt and the balance 75% is corporate sector debt as a percentage of GDP. And if you come down below 12%, in India, it's 12% of household sector as a percentage of GDP is debt, and 44% is corporate sector. Let us take a pause and understand. I think this is a big, big time bomb. See, because if businesses stop, right, but the interest meter keeps on moving 24 hours a day. So their liability is running, but the businesses have stopped. And this lockdown, the entire half of the globe is under lockdown. And if this lasts longer, if businesses don't run, but interest will keep on running, I think that is going to create a big solvency issue. It is not a liquidity issue that we are currently facing. Of course, liquidity issues are being taken care of, but I think the extent of debt is massive. Imagine each one of us have huge amount of debt on our shoulders, and then there is a lockdown. Our salaries may not come. We maybe our jobs or our businesses is at risk. Can you imagine the situation that we can be into? But still, India is 12% household sector debt, and corporate is, we are still better. But imagine the plight of other countries, developed countries. So if this lockdown lasts longer, what can really happen is all those household sector may want to press their button and want to exit. And please understand, India's current market cap, 20% is being held by FPIs. And if FPIs want money, because they don't want money, it is the investors, their own investors from Canada, France, UK, Japan. If they press button, then they want exit. I think we are heading for a big, big crash, because if our Indian markets will have a lot of supply, if your investors in Canada, France, UK, China, and USA wants money back. So I think that is the biggest risk that we are following. So that is the number one risk. Currently in India, the latest numbers are total credit to private non-financial sector as a percentage of GDP is around 65%. So now in India also, we have seen moratorium given by RBI. And when you analyze current corporate, your private sector banking results, your NBFC result, one third of their book is now is under moratorium. In fact, one third of their customers are now wanting for moratorium. And now, as every single day passing and business is not happening, this moratorium book is going to get increased by every day. And that is the biggest problem. Still, please understand, India is around, the debt as a percentage of GDP is still less. Imagine the condition of the entire world where those corporates are heading and households are heading. Currently, if you've seen Bajaj Finance, Concall, and the way management, they were all very, very, the confidence was shaken, and they are really witnessing a big, big difficulty in terms of recovering. Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank have reduced credit card limits by 90%. Can you imagine why they have taken this step? It is because debt levels, they don't want the debt levels to start increasing. So this is the risk that you need to take care. If this lockdown continues, I think the debt level is going to create a mess. So this is one live example of what social distancing can lead to in collapse in business activity. So these are our international records. Maybe we don't maintain, this is not very easy to get from India. So I have taken this. So this is restaurants across the world, some of the key, in some of the key countries. Your YOY change in percentage revenue in the month of February and March. If you see, just by middle of March, the revenues had dried up by 100%. So there were no revenue. And the fall began in the first week of March. So this is one example. Social distancing can really cause damage to, say, a restaurant. Like that, there will be tens and dozens of other industry which will have impact because of social distancing. And depending on the debt level on the balance sheet, I think that this is a big solvency issue that the world is staring at. No amount of liquidity pushing in, no amount of helicopter money is going to help solve this problem. So now let us analyze from a different angle. So when markets can bottom, so this is a 2008-9 bear market crash and the current 2020 data. So the dark blue line that you see is the volatility index. So VIX as we call. So if VIX is high, that means the fear levels are high and markets are in the bear market grip. The moment it is down, it cools down. That means when volatility becomes low, it is only at that time when we see bulls coming back and large commitments are being made when volatility really comes down. So if you see the light blue line, so that is 2008-9 financial market crash. Volatility had reached similar peaks at around 75 to 80. And then it took around 4-5 months for volatility to come down. And then by March of 2009, we had witnessed a big beginning of a bull market. So if you can see in this next slide. So this is 2009 US bear market bottom. And this is the entire Lehman Brothers driven bear market that we saw beginning October 2007. And then if you can see somewhere in the middle, that red steep line, sorry, the white steep line, October 3, 2008, a troubled asset repurchase program that was announced by the Federal Reserve, and the interest rate was more or less reduced. In spite of that, volatility was still high at that time, around 80s, and still market did not turn up for a bull market. It took around 4-5 months. And if you can see down below, when the yellow line, the volatility index really cooled down, that was a time when sometimes in March of 2009, bull market really returned. And if you can see the arrow somewhere on the right side, so that means, so that was a time when, so in fact, after 6 months, when the major bottom was registered in March of 2009, Warren Buffett came on television media and said, now I have turned bull in America, and he started purchasing some few big ticket investments. So please understand, so this is how real big money comes into market, when volatility really cools down, when there is clarity, and when investors like Warren Buffett then comes, they really don't want to catch a falling knife and go out and say that, oh my God, markets are falling, let me do my purchases. So this is how smart investors have behaved. And this is what we also think that, so Indian markets was also similar. So why I have covered US market is, Indian market was a mirror image of this entire sequence. So it is better we saw that US market. So this is one more way of looking at bull and bear market. So this is a typical Elliott wave move. Many of you may not be aware, but let me just explain you in simple format. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is bull market. So this is how bulls behave. And then ABC is a correction, or what we call as a bear market. So currently what we have witnessed right now in USA and in India is A. So we have that first leg of fall that we have seen in the month of last week, end of March, around 39% fall in Nifty. And then we are seeing a bounce back that you have seen currently from 7,500 to around 9,900. And now our Nifty is at around 9,300, 400 odd levels. So currently we are in B. And then we expect a last down move or C wave that is called, which will finally complete or will register the bear market bottom. And that's how, this is how bull markets have behaved in the past, not only in 100 years, but the past 1,000 years. So this pattern was, this naming was done by Mr. R.N. Elliott. So he was during his deathbed, and he really saw something so phenomenal that he wrote a book, and he also wrote newsletters, which are so famous, and people have really understood that markets, bull markets and bear markets have certain forms and patterns. And if you are able to identify those forms and patterns, I think they can capture bull and bear market cycles effectively. So I'll stop here on this RN Elliott wave. But I think that from that perspective, we have one more down for remaining. So now let us see, as I said, ABC sequence in the market. So first fall in 1992 that we had post Harshad Mehta, 44% fall market had witnessed. Then there was a pullback of 37%, the B that I was talking about. And the last fall was 32%, the C that I was talking about. In 2000, the first fall was 24%, A, the second pullback was 18%, and the C last fall 26.5%. In 2008, first fall was 30%, then the B, the pullback was 25%, and the fall C was 32%. In 2020, first fall 39%. Pullback currently is slightly more than 21%. It's around 30%. And the fall C that we are awaiting, so that can take markets to around 7,500 odd levels. May or may not be the exact levels, but the principle is that markets will head lower. I think there's a short point that I wanted to cover in this. So this is current Nifty, A, that is over, B, that we are currently into, and C, as and when it comes, will head markets lower. So now I was also telling that the current anatomy is similar to 1929-33 Great American Depression. So that the B over there was slightly longer. It lasted for around 3-4 months. And we also believe that the B in India will also, and world over, will also be longer, because the corporate numbers will only be clear by next quarter, because current quarter, everyone knew, because there was a partly impact of shutdown was visible, but next quarter will be very important. So markets will take its own time before heading lower. So that's a short observation that I had basis with 1929-33 depression. So this is a newsletter from RN Elliott, January 2020. So in that newsletter, it's a paid newsletter. So I just wanted to show their research from 1929 till January of 2020. They had marked the entire US bull market into a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So fifth is a top. It's a top of bull market, and then we will see a major ABC correction. So A is already over, or in the process of getting over. A is over, B is underway, and we will see a C that will unfold, and that will take market lower. So this is just an image of that report page that we had seen in Elliott wave. So now I conclude my bear market case, that why markets are heading lower. One, statistically, there is evidence that the time bears take to really truly unfold is at a minimum 17 months. And on an average, post that we will have 2 years for the markets to come back. So there is enough and more of time the bears have in their hand for the markets to take them lower. And we will see those impact. The debt levels are really the key concern. If debt levels are high and if lockdown continues, I think the implosion in debt, that is biggest worry, not only in India, but across the world. And that can lead to all asset prices coming lower, and equity market being liquid will have the most selling that will happen in those markets, because other markets are largely illiquid, and therefore equity will face horrible time. So we need to understand those debt levels and how this lockdown lasts longer. And when the volatility subsides, when truly sectorally, when in India, when we see that volatility reduces, currently is at around 45, it's still not an historically an attractive figure for the bulls to really come in and start investing, because they need really a good amount of visibility before they really put in a big amount of money. So all those scenarios, and given that ABC, we have seen historically bear markets behave, we are seeing a lower markets going ahead. So now let us start a bull case. What all those people who are thinking that this is a great time to invest, uh, uh, and we are reading, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, invest, then you will not get these valuations, etc., etc. So what all those bull camps are thinking, so let us understand them. So this is Morgan Stanley Emerging Market Index, and this is the index of around 12 countries. You see SARS, you see swine flu, and every time, and currently COVID. So every time those pandemics, or not pandemics, epidemics have been a good time for markets to have made a bottom, and those are good time for investors to really invest in. So this is an example to show you that degrowth in GDP may not lead always to a massive correction in stock prices. So now please remember, this present all the talk that I'm going to make on this part is that markets has got limited downside potential, and markets are at least going to remain sideways, and this is a good time for investors, and markets will eventually from starting medium term, markets will move higher. So markets may not reach 7,500 levels. So this is the case that I am going to present now. So this is a 1950 to 1960 GDP numbers, quarterly GDP numbers, and the stock market. The yellow color line that you are seeing is the index Dow Jones, and the red color bar, and the white color bars that you are seeing is the quarterly GDP numbers. What I want to show you is, in spite of GDP registering degrowth or lower GDP numbers, not necessarily stock market will move lower, because stock market is a function of liquidity. If money comes in, no amount of poor losses in corporate numbers, no amount of lower GDP numbers or your PMI numbers is going to lead to stocks to fall. Because if money starts chasing stocks, ultimately stock prices are going to move higher, irrespective of what numbers you will see on GDP front or what economists will say. So this is just an example. Like this, there are many other examples that we have seen in India also, wherein GDP numbers may have registered lower quarter to quarter numbers, but still stocks have moved higher, maybe because, as I said, it's stock market is a function of liquidity too, which moves stock prices higher or lower. So why I'm showing you this slide is, we have seen that IMF and other predictions are made that GDP of India will be around 2%, entire world will register negative GDP numbers. In spite of that, if liquidity, and I'll come on my next part, if liquidity comes in, stocks will move higher. Whether or not our GDP numbers are poor, ugly, or massively red, still stocks can move higher, because stocks is a function of liquidity. So now let us understand this important piece of information, which captures 100 years of economic turmoil. So how previous governments have responded during World War I and World War II. If you see the green line, that is UK. So UK had given massive financial stimulus during World War I, and same during World War II. And then US, if you see down below, pink color line, that too had given massive stimulus during World War I and World War II. Because as government, they know that if they want to kickstart the economy, if they really want to bring back economy on track, they will have to spend. And unless they spend, economies do not really have their own strength to move back. Currently, this chart does not update the current situation. So I am using the this typical. So this keeps on changing, but broadly you will have an idea that USA has given around 2 trillion, 9.5% of GDP. China 2.8%, $394 billion. Japan, you see, Germany, Spain has given massive $219 billion, and that is 5.6% of GDP. So governments across the world have understood that if they really don't stimulate the economy by whatever means they can, world is heading for a disaster. And therefore they are, Germany 21%. So these governments are now far more active, and no one wants the bear market. Everyone wants bull market to begin, and governments have really thrown in all their might, and central banks too. So central bank, US central bank, I think they are the leaders, and they have understood uh, uh, how to get this uh, economy working. They have reduced interest rate to around next to 0.212%, so next to zero, and that will bring in a lot of uh, loans into the system that will kickstart the economy. So that is how that they have done in the past. And as I'm showing, as I've told you, liquidity is very important. So this is March of 2020, and in USA we had seen maximum amount of inflow in Vanguard fund. So 4.2 billion was just in March, and that was unheard in last 10 years. So I think liquidity is going to drive stocks higher or lower, not alone whatever what the fear that we have on the street. So let us understand the Fed move. This is very important. So let's understand the historically how Fed have behaved. So is whenever Fed reduces interest rate, what happens next? So if you see on this chart, somewhere in the middle, you had 2008 market top, and then 2009 crash, a financial market crash caused by Lehman Brothers. Markets were down by 58%. If you see the blue line, that is interest rate, and interest rate was reduced to next to zero sometimes in December of 2008. And we saw a bull market emerging in March of 2009. So 3 months later, we saw a massive bull market that we have seen in last 10, 12 years. And this is what the impact is when the interest rate is zero or next to zero. So if you see back in 2000, 2001 stock market crash, that time also markets came down by 51%, and 13 times US Fed had a rate cut. And when the rates were around zero, we have seen markets heading higher. So currently this chart is not updated to the latest, but now also the interest rate is next to zero. And we think that because $2 trillion of liquidity, when they come in market, that's huge. So world over, we will see the spillover effect of this liquidity. In fact, helicopter money that has been created by Fed, and that can really revive the bull market, and eventually liquidity in market and stocks will move higher. So this is what the effect of Fed when the interest rate is next to zero. Imagine you can, for zero interest rate, you can buy your homes, you can buy your cars, you can buy. So everyone will want to do that, right? Because interest rate is next to zero. So this is the power of cost of money. When it is less, it makes people to take risk. So, and that's how economy starts. So this is the whole purpose of interest rate reductions. So now let us understand why India will witness the major inflows, this $2 trillion of helicopter money that US Fed has showered. So currency is one of the most important factor that decides the strength of a country. And when global funds, they do allocation, they obviously want money to be invested in a stronger country, which reflects through their currency. So when you invest in company, you will see your high ROEs, your high operating margin. So that is a strong company. Similarly, when you are investing in a country, you see exchange rate. So you've seen Mexico has seen a depreciation of 14.9%. Brazilian peso has seen 13.4%. And you see down below India somewhere. So that is around 3.8%. So numbers may vary. So this is slightly 2-3 weeks older data. But the moral of the story is that our currency has been far more resilient, is far more stronger than other emerging market countries. And therefore, whenever the liquidity comes in, India will be the first country to have that massive amount of inflows because our currency is strong. China is another country, but for XYZ reason, funds may or may not want to come in China. But I think India is a great country as and when this $2 trillion of helicopter money starts flowing in, and India will witness massive amount of buying. So this is a 40 years of valuation data on S&P 500. This PE multiple, if you see on the extreme right, so current valuations are far more reasonable than the euphoric levels that we had seen. And therefore, from buying point of view, there is every reason why value for bull market to begin, the valuations are reasonable and can take markets higher. So this is India. So this is Nifty 50 PE multiple beginning around 1999. If you see on the below bottom, 2020 January, our PE multiple was around 28, March 25, and currently I think broadly given the earnings estimate, Nifty is at around 16, 17 odd PE multiple. If you see the right side, extreme right column, that's an average of the year. So around, if you see 14, 15, 16 is a reasonable level for the Nifty. So if you want to measure in terms of valuation. So markets are currently at a reasonable valuation, unlike that we saw in January and February 2020, March of this year. So there is one more point. Crude, because 85% of India's import happens in, we import, and that being around 7 to 8 lakh crores, we think that around 50% reduction in price, Indian government, there will be savings of around 2-3 lakh crores. That is a blessing in disguise for Indian government. So they will have the taps running, or their wallets to that extent will have a more amount of funds in order to stimulate the economy as and when they do. So this is broadly what we think that why bull case is there. Number one, $2 trillion of helicopter money. Federal Reserve has, so they have already tested the medicine that whenever there is liquidity crisis, whenever the markets fall, if they reduce interest rate, the markets will move higher. So this time also they have done it far more aggressively. They have done it far more quicker than what we have seen in 2008-9. For in 2008-9, it took around 6 months for them to announce this. Here, they have announced within a month, less than a month, they were able to roll out this policy. And governments across the world, as I've said, they too are, your ECB, Japanese Central Bank, everyone is now have reduced the cost of money. Governments are really applying the full force, and we think that they will be able to do that, given that governments across the world are far more powerful today. Central banks are far more powerful today than what they were 20, 30 years ago. And the policy announcement and the policy directions are clear. So that will take markets higher. These are times to invest. This correction, you need to acquire, you need to be in the market, because if really things start, if this health epidemic is, and it will be under control in a few weeks or few months down the line, financial market will start moving higher, because there is huge amount of liquidity sitting out there across the world that will come. It is not that Indian liquidity will really prop up the market. It's a global liquidity that will prop up the markets, and that will take markets higher. So you really may not, Indian economic numbers or Indian corporate numbers may not really be of much help. Eventually, it's the world market, world flow that is going to drive the markets higher. So here I conclude on the part that why markets can really move higher in terms of the current valuation proposition, that Nifty is reasonably valued, and world over governments will be able to push markets higher. So now markets may go higher, markets may go lower, but how do we make money, or how do we as an individual investors or a trader can really analyze situation and actually make our coffers wealthy? So let us examine the four most wisdom from top four wise men of this planet. So this will help us in guiding how should we move ahead. Sir John Templeton, what he says is, the four most dangerous words in investing are, this time it's different. In fact, it's never different. It's always the same. Greed and fear will always be there, and that is how markets have behaved. Fear that companies will not make profits, fear that I will not have my job, or fear that I will not be able to, or economy will not perform, or fear that can cause stocks to come down lower. But after fear, after night, a day will come. So day and night keeps on alternating, and there is nothing new. So the moment fear peaks in, we are going to have bull market. We will have a hope rally, and then again bulls will come back. And this is how markets have behaved. And therefore, you should take this opportunity as an opportunity that once the fear subsides, this will be a time for us to take a plunge in the market. So Roberts Arnott has said, in investing, what is comfortable is rarely profitable. So what he says, and that makes sense. So if we think that I want to be in a comfortable position when things are so all right, I will want to make, then I will invest, or then I will trade. So that rarely happens. If you take risk, and if you do things when most people are uncomfortable, I think that's where you can make a big opportunity. We have seen many big billionaires from South America. So they have bought shares and companies when there was panics that we are seeing in such time, and they have become billionaires of. So those are the stories that are not recorded, but you should be aware of that, how those people have also made money. Be fearful when others are greedy. This is what Warren Buffett says, and it's important to assess where that fear is peaking. And even Warren Buffett too is not committal right now, because people are thinking that if Warren Buffett is not committing, why should we? But please understand the Warren Buffett's balance sheet. So they are into insurance business. So if huge amount of claims come in, they will have to repay. So currently they are not able to assess what will be the liability on the insurance front, and therefore they have that huge amount of cash that is sitting. So that is partly a reason why they are not investing. Number one. Number two, they may have exited from airline stock because of their own whatever they feel about that particular industry. But please understand, airline stocks are around 60-65% lower. And I also want to tell you that because Warren Buffett has sold, that does not mean that airline will really go for a toss. In 2009, Mr. Warren Buffett sold off ConocoPhillips, that was at the bottom. They sold off Johnson & Johnson right at near the bottom. So not necessarily what Warren Buffett does may be an indication, although his wisdom words are to be taken, but we also need to know what practically he has been doing. So you need to apply your own mind in assessing whether the peak has been achieved in terms of how market readings are being, how market is behaving, and then take your own call rather than relying on someone like Warren Buffett. And lastly, and the most important thing, I think this is the most important line that Peter Lynch has said: know what you own and know why you own it. So as an investor, if you know that you are owning an Asian Paint is one of the most profitable, consistent company, which has got highest operating profit margin. People, because of pandemic, people may not paint their homes for next 6 months to 1 year, but down the line, eventually people will keep on painting their homes. So I have no problem holding my Asian Paint shares. And therefore, even if prices move down by 10-20%, I'm not going to sell. So here now this Peter Lynch's wisdom is very, very important for each one of us. If we want to make a big money for next 5-10 years, and as an investor, if we really want to play smart, we need to understand what the companies that I'm investing or the companies that I'm holding, what are they doing? Or if I want to make fresh investments, how are they doing? Why I'm owning this company? And you should know every damn thing. Then and only then you will be able to withstand the 10, 20, 30% fall the stocks that may see if this pandemic lasts longer, if this crisis lasts longer, still you will be able to hold on to the stock. So this is what an investor should broadly do for his investing portfolio. So now we have laid a roadmap that if this lockdown lasts longer, debt is the biggest problem. And if you see in 2008, 2009, all the financials had crashed by around 60%. So something like your Wells Fargo, something like Citigroup. So they had corrected by around 60-70%. So mentally you be ready that currently in India also, if the lockdown lasts longer, financials will be the sector which will have the maximum amount of impact. NBFCs will be the sector which will have maximum amount of impact. So those are really the soft points which will have impact. And for traders, they should also consider that if they want to consider doing trading on short side, they need to identify sectors and then weaker stocks in those sector and then go short. So that's how traders should approach this market. So I think broadly I have covered what investors should do in terms of they really need to understand and then invest in a staggered manner, because we don't know how long this will last, but hopefully this will get cleared. So but to give you an analogy, we are driving a car and there is a fog, right? So the fog, because the speed is less, so currently which we are into, sooner or later the fog will go, and then again when you see the path clear, you will pick up the speed. So the sooner you see the fog getting cleared, you can accelerate and you can start your aggressive purchases. But till that time, you should be very selective, you should be very slow, and you should be on your tender hook, and you should wait for an opportunity. But at least get some clarity when the fog is little getting clear, and then you can press the throttle. As I said, Warren Buffett also invested 6 months after that major bottom was achieved in March of 2009, and you see the massive rally. So don't be in a hurry to invest. Wait for some clarity, see what's happening out there, and then put in your money. If you are already invested, then that is also a thing that maybe you will have to hold on and understand what stocks you have. The weaker quality stocks, you may have to take an exit and enter. As I said, you need to understand and enter into those fundamental stock sound companies, because now switching is very easy because all stocks are mostly down, and therefore you really need to take that hit, get rid of your past, because investing is an intellectual process. Unless you clean up your slate, you are not going to have that return. So these are the trying times. You really need to clean slate. One shot, take exit in all loss-making stocks and invest in and switch that money into good companies. So that's how I think you will be able to start this journey afresh with clean slate. So that's for investors. And for traders, there is one quote that I would like to quote from Jesse Livermore. What he said is, no price is too low to sell. So for traders, I think they really need to identify stock prices that are weak, and those are in breakouts, lower breakouts, and they may short sell with proper stop losses. And as a matter of disclaimer, short selling is altogether a different art. Please don't venture into it unless you know. Otherwise, huge amount of money will be lost short selling, and even if markets will move lower, traders will not make money. So please first understand, learn that art, and then do short selling. Otherwise, it is better to keep quiet, stay calm, and watch this entire process, how it gets unfolding. And then once clarity comes in, you may start investing, because 80% of 80% of market participants are long only. They have a buy and hold strategy. So for them, it is very difficult to adjust in the current scenario. So now I have done my part. Let's open this forum for.
Thanks, Umesh. That was an absolutely phenomenal presentation. And no, you have not done your part, because the chat box has been buzzing with a lot of questions. Some of them, I think, got answered during the course of your presentation. I'm going to club up a few that are seem to come up and very, very relevant. The first one is any insights on the lack of correlation between economic performance, GDP, versus stock market? You did mention liquidity as a factor. I think I will add that to another question that says, do you expect a second fall around June?
So expect second fall around June, maybe yes, because by the time, see, please understand what has happened is RBI has covered up everything. So now they have given official license that now your NPA classification may not be that strict, or they have given that leeway. So now we don't know what's the internal deterioration that is happening in the balance sheets of private sector banks, PSU banks, and NBFCs, right? So that's number one. But eventually that will get cleared by September, and June will also have a clarity, June quarterly numbers. By that time, we will have a certain amount of clarity, wherein because of migrant labor issue, because of XYZ, we will be able to assess things, and that's the time when market will start reacting, and they will realize the economic reality at ground level. So currently we are in lockdown, no one is going out, therefore things will continue the way it is. But the moment economy opens up, that's the time negative reaction will start.
Thanks, Umesh. There have been a bunch of questions with individual sectors. I'll take two at a time. Your view on the pharma sector and your view on the FMCG space, given that clearly basic staples is what one is seeing in terms of demand at the moment.
Excellent. So pharma and FMCG will be a guidepost for all other sectors, and I think this is a very good question. See, please understand, pharma as a sector is currently trading at around 35 times earnings on an average, 35 times P multiple, and Nifty has gone below to around 17. Pharma, the problem is what? The prices have run up ahead of expectations. So whether or not the plants that US FDA have cleared for Indian companies, whether that will generate export revenues incrementally, yes, no, currently we don't know. Whether competition, once this pandemic is over, how governments will react to this medicine, how they will react to this entire pharma space, no one knows. People will want to have in-house make in India or make in USA or make in China type of policy, wherein all these essentials might move into the country of origin. So that is biggest challenge. And please understand, generic is not a great profitable business. You have to spend around 10% of your sales in doing R&D, and then find a product which requires 50 million of regulatory approval. That an expense. And statistically, if you understand, 80-20 is the ratio. So 20% of products give 80% of revenues for pharma companies across the world. So launching one or two products here and there does not mean that I am going to have a big impact on my sales. Second, and in terms of all wealth creating stocks that you have seen, the earnings have to be on the table. Please don't invest in hopes and expectations that this company will do numbers in such great times. So I think Warren Buffett mantra is very, very important. And this is like a Bhagavad Gita mantra that I am saying for everyone. And this will help you, everyone, for riding this investing journey. What it says is, invest in great companies at fair valuation. So now invest in great companies is a is in present times, right? So you have to look everything. So present time, if the current numbers and balance sheet are good in the present times, then you invest. Please don't invest in a balance sheet or a P&L which will happen in future. That way he has not made money, and neither is he advising that people should invest in those futuristic or hope basis. So currently there is nothing on the table that pharma companies will really have around sustained earnings of 20-30%. So there is a re-rating that has already happened. Earnings multiple have already gone up. So now in current situation, it's time for wait and watch. FMCG sector has been defensive, but earnings multiple are high, around 60-70%. So now if you are an investor and if you understand markets, you will want to invest in stocks that are beaten down, stocks that are beaten down because of COVID, but companies are great, although you have seen a cut in their P&L. So these are the companies which you have a higher ROE, or you will have higher return, far higher returns if you invest in those companies. So for example, cyclicals. So cyclicals are down by around 50, 60, 70%. So when times turn good, you will have 300, 400, 500% returns that will come in cyclicals. So as an investor, it's up to you how you take at it. So if you have risk, if you are an aggressive investor, and if you know the proper dynamics of stocks, you are investing in cyclical, it's up to your risk appetite. But in general, if you are an investor wishing to invest for 10-15 years, then you should chase compounders available at reasonable valuation. So only in that case, you should select FMCG, because they are slightly lower valued, but those are the stocks which will compound your wealth. But nonetheless, financials are also good, but you never know. Financials will see maybe they will see a lot of pain. So you need to keep an eye on those stocks. But financials will also give fantastic returns. You will have to keep little patience for that sector of investment.
Sure. Umesh, there was another question which actually talked about which sectors in your opinion, or which sector in your opinion will be the biggest gainer and which will be the biggest loser in the next 18 to 24 months. Now, there are a lot of questions here on individual sectors. Instead of going sector by sector, this may be a better way of answering. Specifically, one sector which has been in a lot of pain, which is the auto sector. If you can separately kind of give your outlook as well.
Okay. So, last 35 years of Indian market and around 70 years of US market. So I have done a research, and I can tell you from practical experience, markets follow a law of alternation. Sectors that have performed or that are performing well will not perform. Obviously, and the sectors that are really beaten down or not performing are the ones which will perform. So currently, auto sector is one of them. So auto is there is so much of pessimism, but please understand, we will require automobiles in for our daily commute, and plus the valuations that although companies are reporting losses, but now I think from valuation standpoint of view, 50-60% correction is good enough to start with if one wants to invest in cyclical stocks. Plus the government might give in your scrapping policy, plus there will be increased amount of spending because of social distancing. People will want to use private vehicles. So I think as the sector, auto looks good in terms of current dynamics, but obviously, as I said, you may have to wait. But from a sector perspective, auto will give outperformance. Pharma may not really give outperformance, but we will have to see, wait and watch how things really happen in terms of post-COVID lockdown. As outperformance will be also given by financials, private sector bank, I think, to name them, Kotak and likes of HDFC Bank. But we may see some amount of pain before that mouth-watering valuations will entice investors. But you keep that in watch. Metals will also give outperformance, because zinc, for example, is a basic material. Without that, we cannot really build. Steel is a basic material without that we cannot really build infrastructure. So those are the sectors. And if you can remember, and if you see, Tata Steel has done nothing since last 10 years. It will fall 60-70%. and then again it will rise 300, 400%. So those are the kind of sectors you should watch for, wherein you will have massive upside, but you should be ready to see the pain, because cyclicals are one which really may not happen immediately over next week or, but when they do move, they will give massive outperformance.
There is a macro question as well. I think this was at the time we were going through the slides. How should we read the low levels of debt in India compared to other countries? Is it right to assume that this will result in better situation for India? And I'm clubbing this up with another question. Despite such high levels of indebtedness, China seems to be getting by without the kind of stimulus developed economies are giving. How are they managing?
Correct. So in a way, it is a blessing in disguise for India that debt levels are low compared to other developed countries. So, so for example, so there is two ways of looking at it. So for example, Canada. So Canada, if I'm earning my 55 to 60% of my earnings go to government in forms of social security taxes and etc. etc. So now if I'm in Canada, I have lost my job. Government has told me that we will give you salary for next 1 year and the same level of salary that you were drawing. Correct. So this is the level of security that these developed countries have. So in a way, debt is not pinching. So I have my debt, but currently that is taken care of. So that's an example of Canada. So similarly, US is also helping that if you don't, if you keep your employees as companies, we will give you loan, you pay salary, so that those debt levels. See, please understand why they want to give salaries or they want to keep this motion running is because of debt. Because if I am not able to repay my debt, they know that cascading effect will come into play. So all those economies are struggling to keep that machine rolling. India, because debt levels are low to that extent, we are slightly better off. And therefore, you see that response that RBI has given is still muted. Let me tell you, still it is muted because they know that India is still at a reasonably sound wicket because the debt levels are still reasonable to lower. And therefore, what we are seeing, so we should not compare blindly if US government or Japanese government have done so much that they have done, because that is required for them to do. But that may not be the case for India. So India, we collect around 30%. So India, we don't have that social security concept. So government's hands are tied. They have a limitation, but they will do, I think, whatever smart they can do because they are taking time. And I think Indian government should also do best in terms of whatever they can do. And hopefully things should start better. But broadly, it is good that Indian debt levels are low.
There are two questions, more liquidity and currency related. With trillions of dollars in new liquidity being pumped in by the US, doesn't that mean that currencies will appreciate for all countries where this money goes to? The other one is when you're talking about massive liquidity package announced by the US through the CARES Act, a lot of this was meant to keep businesses afloat and jobs in place. Wouldn't the helicopter money be first used to revive the domestic economy and then the residual amount would be used for investment? So the currency correction will be limited to that extent?
So, so things will take time at ground level, but the most important point that they have announced this stimulus is people will start thinking that, okay, now it's time for hope. Let's start thinking that things will become better. It may not happen immediately. So that's the whole purpose. But absent that $2 trillion of stimulus, absent that interest rate is still higher, please understand that the markets are really, or for that even businesses are so much under stress that God knows what will happen. But the moment government announced the measures world over and $2 trillion by US Fed, you see the mark changed in the way markets have started behaving. They absolutely become slow. Now they are in wait and watch mode. The panic level is over because they know that now possibly things will get better. And that is what is also reflected in the way market participants are behaving.
What is your opinion on gold and what is the best way to be investing in gold?
So let me give you a historical perspective. Back in 2008-9, when helicopter money, the $1.5 trillion effectively was given out. People were saying that gold will rise to XYZ levels because same amount of gold, and when the supply of money increases, obviously the prices of gold will move up. But unfortunately, that has not happened. In last 10 years, gold price have slightly corrected, but it has not moved higher in spite of 1.5 trillion of helicopter money. So now let's come back to 2020. Now the amount of stimulus is far higher, not only from US, but from world over. And therefore what people are assessing is that for same amount of gold on this planet, for larger amount of money supply, gold prices should go up. So that is what the bull market, the bull camp is thinking. And this is how demand supply is all about. So gold as an asset class is now far more important, because what we think and what has been seen historically is the pill that was used in 2008-9 may not work. The liquidity pill that US Fed and other countries at that time has done may not work this time. And that is the biggest worry world over, that although Fed has given $2 trillion of money, things may not be, they will not be able to control the situation. And this time the worst is ahead of us. If that is the case, then in that scenario, you must have some amount of gold in your portfolio, because this may either lead to a social unrest wherein many sort of ugly things can happen out there on the world. You never know how this situation can unfold. So as a matter of, and currently gold is also consolidating. So in a way is also assuring us that the profit booking is not really happening. Accumulation is happening, and therefore we think that gold should go higher in medium term. But in general, gold has given as much return as equities in last 20-30 years. So if you compare Indian stock market return and gold, so it is equally wise for you. If you are an investor, you must invest gold for long term, that I'm going to, this is my investment. So you need to have the percentages proper, at minimum 10%. But I think it is safe if you can have around 15 to 20% gold. And please understand, you really need to work on this. People have seen that, okay, मैं ले लूँगा, gold में होना चाहिए, but no one has. You need to work, and you need to have gold as an asset class immediately in your balance sheet, assuming that it will go down for the sake of it. But from a 5, 10, 20 year perspective, gold will give you as equal decent return as equities.
So, Umesh, just on this, I think people were also wanting to know how they should invest in gold. Should you buy physical gold? Should you buy ETFs? You know, like there are multiple ways of getting that, right? I mean, what is your preferred option? Because gold, obviously, preserving it is a pain in itself, right?
So, I recollect 1987 stock market crash, wherein I was reading at that time traders, the mentality of traders at that time. So to give you a perspective, 30% fall was 30% market corrected in just one day. And people were so panicky. People were thinking the world is getting over. Come on, let's take all our money from the coffers that we have in our home, and let us be ready for some big economic catastrophe. So those are the times gold at your house is going to help you. Number one. Number two, so please understand the risk that we all are running in this is a digital, we all are connected, our bank account are connected through internet. If internet for XYZ reason there is a blackout, right? So anything. So how will you access your bank account? How will you access your gold? How will you access your shares? How will you access your Demat account? So please understand, as a matter of diversification, it's intelligent that you should keep gold as a physical asset. But if that is not the case, then at least ETF or your sovereign gold bond, I think that is a good way of investing in gold, because that also gives you interest apart from asset appreciation. But nonetheless, as I told you, physical would be an added advantage for an intelligent investor.
What's your take on other asset classes, you know, like other commodities like crude, which you've seen has gone into some funny behavior like a negative price and so on and so forth, and even real estate?
So crude is a purely demand, excess supply, and because of lockdown, there is no consumption in crude, and therefore all the wells that were running, they had to keep on pumping, and therefore there was massive supply, and we had seen negative prices, and there is huge storage capacities. So crude as a commodity will remain lower in terms of, so that's good for everyone, in fact, India. But from a global perspective, from a global catastrophe, lower crude price is damaging many other economies, your Russian economy, your Middle East economy. So their sovereign fund may come and take away money from our Indian markets. So all those risks are there in terms of lower crude oil prices. But in general, as an investor, if I want to, one should not bet on crude oil, given that there are huge. So current crude maybe is trading at around 20-24, and 2-3 months down the line, crude is trading at 20, 30, 40% premium, 50% premium. So the arbitrage, or not the arbitrage, but the carryover charges are huge. So, so it is better left for professional crude traders. But in general, I think prices will remain lower, and that's good for India.
And what about real estate, commercial and residential? Any views on that at all?
So I think it's anybody's guess. It will. Deepak Parekh had said that prices should correct by around 20%. So it's and it should. Sooner or later, I think builders should also liquidate, and prices should correct. And that would be a time for those who are waiting may invest, if depending on the personal use.
Okay, fine. Rita, last 2 or 3 questions you can take. 5 minutes.
We just have around 5 odd minutes. Do you have an opinion on the crypto market, and how do you expect it to behave post-COVID?
No idea. I have no idea. No comment.
Yeah.
I think there was another question about what indicators do bulls and bears typically track in volatile markets like these?
Okay. So, so there is one ideal to identify tops and bottoms is stocks making 52-week high and 52-week low. So I, in fact, because I could have also shown you on the slide, but currently that's not ready. But let me explain you what I'm telling you. And this is very important for every one of you to understand major market tops and bottoms. So let me explain you with an example. So currently on March 27th, Nifty was down, 7,500 was the trading level. And say, for example, 500 stocks were trading at 52-week low. I repeat, when Nifty was down 7,500 levels in the last week of March, 500 stocks were trading at 52-week low. Fast forward June 2020. So 3 months later, assuming Nifty comes back to 7,500 levels. Now you have to check whether stocks making 52-week low were higher or lower. So assuming in June when Nifty comes back to 7,500, stocks making 52-week low are only 200. So earlier it was 500 and now it is 200. This gives you a high confidence probability that now June 2020 Nifty 7,500 is a bottom, and now let me go in and let me buy. Similarly, during tops, when you measure the velocity or the strength of the bull market, that you do by number of stocks that are making 52-week high. So the same thing you repeat while assessing market tops. So I hope I have made clear. I made it clear. So you are mute. You will have to
hear you. Your voice is muted.
I apologize. I'm just going to pick this last question from the chat. Do you, I think I am combining this with some other questions as well. Would you look at stocks? Would you look at mutual funds? Would you look at active stroke passive investing at the current point of time? And if you have an asset allocation in mind?
Very good. I think this answer will be worth listening everyone. so this is my years of experience and the way I've seen hundreds of people out there in market. If you want to make money as an investor, please have a portfolio approach and don't yourself become an investor and start picking stocks, because investing is an intellectual process which we have not learned during our school and college days. And that is the reason why please don't do it yourself. Although you may be good at identifying, okay, this Reliance is great stock because of XYZ reason, or Hindustan Unilever is a great stock because of XYZ reason. But eventually investing requires asset allocation. It requires your emotions to be controlled. It requires your holistic approach and not get biased, or for that matter, you really have to be objective. The moment I start thinking about individual stock, I really get attached to it. I am so attached that at times I'm not able to sell, or I invest so much that my asset allocation gets screwed and something goes wrong with that stock. My entire portfolio is destroyed. Although I am very intelligent, but because I have made certain mistakes, eventually I did not make money. So the best way would be, number one, to invest in 10, 12, 15 stocks if you want to do it yourself. I think that's the best way. So whenever you have money, so for example, now I have 1 lakh rupee. So invest that 1 lakh rupee in 10 stocks. Unless you have the 10 stock in your table, please don't invest. Please don't invest in 1 or 2 stocks. So number one, your risk management, your asset allocation is taken care of at the threshold. Second, if you are not able to do that, I think mutual fund, there are good mutual funds out there who do this, who are doing this efficiently, and you should invest. Although the returns might be slight less because they charge, but please understand in long term that will pay off, because you will not lose money, you will not do reckless betting, you will have an unbiased view, you will have unemotional attachment for your investments, because you have given your money to a mutual fund. Even if you are in market, even if you understand everything, I've seen many people are not making money because, as I said, it's an intellectual process. We have not learned it. So please, if you have money in your account, please either give it to a mutual fund, or when you want to invest, as I told you, on 10 stock at a stroke. That's real investment rather than focusing on 1 or 2 stocks.
Thank you very much, Umesh. I think that is all we have time for in terms of questions. But thank you very much for an extremely informative, engaging session. I'm so glad you started with bear and ended your presentation with a bull market to be ending on a high. Thank you very much for everyone who attended the session. Hopefully you found it equally interesting and thought-provoking as well. So we look forward to meeting you all at yet another webinar from CFS soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Umesh. Thanks.
Yeah.